They hit me with a $3,000 fine for my rescue dog's barking, then tried to foreclose on my house when I couldn't pay it fast enough. What they didn't know was that I had just inherited my grandfather's mineral rights fortune, $2,300,000 that would let me buy their entire neighborhood out from under them. The foreclosure papers made a heavy thunk when they landed on my granite countertop at 6 in the morning that Tuesday. I was standing right there in the same spot where I fed Max his breakfast every single day for the past 8 months, watching him slowly heal from the anxiety that had made him bark in the first place. Patricia Henderson, the HOA president, had no idea she had just declared war on the wrong person. My name is Sarah. I'm 34. 8 months earlier, I had moved into Pine Valley Estates fresh off a divorce, starting a new software engineering job, and with a golden retriever named Max I'd rescued from the shelter. Max had been so terrified of being left alone that he would shake whenever I picked up my car keys. The subdivision looked perfect on paper. 47 identical McMansions built in 2019, each worth about $400,000, with an HOA that promised a premium lifestyle for only $300 a month in dues. The moment you drove through those stone gates, you smelled fresh mulch and chemical lawn treatments. Every morning at 6 sharp, the synchronized sprinklers hissed to life like a suburban orchestra. That's where I first met Patricia Henderson. 52 years old, HOA board president for 3 straight years. She lived in the largest house on the corner lot and carried herself like royalty. She had retired early from her bank manager job and now spent her days measuring grass blades with an actual ruler and parading her 2 perfectly groomed poodles, Duchess and Earl. The first time she knocked on my door, Max had barked for maybe 20 minutes while I ran to the store. She stood there at 7 p.m. with her clipboard, drenched in gardenia perfume and hairspray so thick it made my eyes water. "Some of us worked hard to maintain property values here," she said, handing me a noise violation notice complete with time-stamped photos she had taken from her window. I tried to explain about Max's separation anxiety and the trainer we were working with. She gave me that thin-lipped smile and tapped her pen. "Rules are rules, dear. We all make sacrifices for the greater good." Week 1, written warning. Week 2, another violation during a thunderstorm. Week 3, $500 fine. I later learned she had been using a professional sound meter app and documenting everything like she was building a court case against a traumatized rescue dog. The rest of the neighborhood lived in quiet fear. Tom, the retired firefighter next door, would whisper over the fence about the $200 fine she once gave him for hanging his American flag 2 inches too low. Janet, the single mom across the street, kept her garden gnomes hidden in the garage ever since Pat declared them unapproved decorative elements. There was even a secret text group called Pine Valley Resistance where neighbors warned one another when Pat was making her clipboard rounds. What neither Pat nor I knew at the time was that 3 months earlier my grandfather, Joe, an old-school West Texas oil wildcatter, had passed away. The lawyers were still sorting his estate, but he had left me the mineral rights to land he had owned since the 1960s. Those rights, suddenly valuable again thanks to new fracking technology, were now worth $2,300,000. I spent night after night at 2 a.m. drinking bitter coffee and reading HOA bylaws, trying to find a way to fight back. All that time, I was sitting on a fortune that could buy and sell Patricia Henderson's entire kingdom. Pat escalated quickly. She installed professional-grade sound monitoring equipment aimed at my backyard. Then a city code enforcement officer showed up, claiming someone had reported a commercial dog breeding operation. I had 1 dog, 1 water bowl, 1 tennis ball. While the officer looked around, Pat was busy on the neighborhood Facebook group posting about residents who didn't respect community standards. That was when my software engineer brain switched from defense to offense. I discovered the bylaws required a full board vote for any fine over $100. Pat had been issuing them unilaterally. I installed legal security cameras with a perfect view of the common areas. That's how I caught her poodles barking nonstop for 47 minutes every Thursday afternoon the moment her car left for Bridge Club. Neighbors started opening up. Tom showed me the resistance text chain. "Mrs. Shouldn't have been fined for rose bushes that were the wrong shade of pink." Janet had hidden her gnomes for 6 months. I began documenting everything in a detailed database. Every notice, every interaction, every invented rule. Then I requested the HOA financial records, which by law they had to provide. $47,000 in unaccounted administrative fees. Landscaping contracts worth $8,000 a month paid to Henderson Landscaping, owned by Pat's brother-in-law, with no competitive bidding. The pattern was unmistakable. Pat doubled down. She issued a $1,500 fine and threatened foreclosure if I didn't pay within 30 days. Her husband, Rick, a city planning commissioner, sent a cease and desist demanding I remove my cameras for violating neighborhood privacy. The irony was almost funny. That was when the estate lawyer called. The mineral rights were officially valued at $2,300,000. More importantly, those rights extended under every single lot in Pine Valley Estates. The 2019 developers had never purchased the subsurface rights because the oil had seemed worthless back then. In Texas, mineral rights trump surface rights. I could legally force access to my property through any yard in the subdivision. I hired a private investigator who specialized in HOA fraud. What she uncovered was staggering. In 3 years, Pat had filed 247 complaints. She had initiated foreclosure proceedings against 7 homeowners, 5 single women, 1 elderly Hispanic man, and 1 young black family with toddlers. Every for sale had gone to Henderson Development Group, Pat's family company. Emails between Pat and her nephew explicitly discussed accelerating the Thompson property acquisition and targeting residents who won't fight the legal fees. The foreclosure notice was taped to my door like a death warrant. For 10 minutes, I actually considered giving Max up to save the house. Then he laid his head in my lap, and I knew we were in this together. I quietly began buying mineral rights from neighbors for $5,000 each. Most laughed and sold. What's under the dirt, right? Within days, I controlled subsurface access under 31 of the 47 properties. I also purchased all the HOA common areas, 15 acres of parks, playgrounds, and undeveloped land, using part of my inheritance. The monthly HOA meeting became the stage for the final act. The community center was standing room only. News cameras were rolling. Pat strode in wearing new jewelry and that signature condescending smile. She called the meeting to order and announced they were invoking a community harmony standards clause to remove me from the neighborhood because of my dog and my disrespect for authority. I stood up with Max at my side. Before we vote on anything, I said calmly, let's talk about the $47,000 in missing HOA funds. Let's talk about the no-bid contracts to your brother-in-law. Let's talk about the emails where you and your nephew planned to force me out so your family could buy my house below market value. The room erupted. One by one, neighbors stood and shared their stories. Basketball fines, wheelchair ramp violations, invented rules about flags, gnomes, and rose colors. Mrs. Chun projected the financial records onto the big screen. My private investigator handed Detective Williams from the Financial Crimes Unit a thick folder of evidence. Pat's face drained of color as the detective read her rights for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. She tried to run. Her designer heels caught on the steps and snapped. The last image the cameras caught was Patricia Henderson being placed in a police car while Max and dozens of other dogs played freely in the open spaces that used to belong to her. 6 months later, Pine Valley is unrecognizable in the best way. The old HOA is gone. In its place, we created the Pine Valley Housing Cooperative run by the residents for the residents. The 15 acres of former common land are now the Pine Valley Dog Sanctuary, a beautiful off-leash paradise with training programs, trauma recovery classes, and a therapy dog initiative. We currently house 47 rescue dogs at any time, with a 90% adoption rate. Max is our unofficial ambassador. His anxiety is long gone. He's confident, happy, and madly in love with Tom's rescue beagle, Rosie. Patricia Henderson is serving 3 years in state prison. Her husband lost his commission seat. Their house was sold to help pay restitution to the families they had targeted. As part of her sentence, the court ordered her to complete 200 hours of community service, cleaning up after the rescue dogs at the sanctuary she once tried to destroy. There is something deeply satisfying about watching her in designer clothes, scooping poop while golden retrievers and mutts run circles around her. Property values didn't crash. They rose. Families moved in specifically because of our pet-friendly, transparent, cooperative model. Janet's garden gnomes are now celebrated on the official neighborhood whimsical garden tour. Children play basketball in driveways past 6 p.m. without fear. Elderly residents no longer hide their wheelchair ramps. On quiet evenings, I walk the sanctuary paths with Max. The air smells like barbecue and fresh grass instead of chemical treatments. The only clicking you hear now is the happy patter of paws, not stilettos on pavement. Neighbors actually talk to one another instead of spying from behind blinds. Sometimes the system does feel rigged against regular people. But every once in a while, the universe hands the quiet ones the perfect tools for justice. Bullies like Patricia Henderson always underestimate the people they try to crush, until the day those people by the neighborhood turn it into a dog sanctuary and make the tyrant clean up the mess she created. And if you're dealing with your own HOA nightmare right now, remember this. Document everything. Know your rights. Check your deed for mineral rights, and never, ever underestimate what a determined person with a good dog and the right leverage can do.